The slime woman invites them to follow her, mentioning that the king is already waiting. Meanwhile, far away at the Giga Empire's water castle Totora's, things are much more tense. High above the ocean, the Empire's leaders are waiting on a report about their failed mission. Inside the Grand Hall, someone breaks the news that an external force jumped in and ruined the assassination. Manager Jang Kim is on his knees, literally shaking while he tries to apologize to the vice president. He creates to elicit him, claiming nobody could have predicted another power interfering with the hunt. The manager is practically sobbing at this point, begging for any kind of forgiveness. Miss Kim, the secretary, doesn't want to hear it and sends him flying with a brutal kick to the face. Vice President Light tells her to cool it, reminding her that she was only just hired back herself. Light knows that if Yopi Land is protecting the leveling warrior, this just became a political nightmare. The scene shifts to the Eastern Kingdom and its massive capital city, Yopi Land. Light leads his team through the gates, making it very clear he hates every second of being in this city. Manager Park follows close behind, looking just as miserable to be in this disgusting place. They march through the streets, surrounded by the sounds of a busy town they clearly look down on. To them, seeing players and NPCs treating each other as equals is just plain wrong. Light keeps his head cool, telling Park to watch his tongue since they're in the enemy's backyard. They move through the crowd, insisting they're only there for diplomacy, not a fight. A little girl runs up and tries to sell Park a flower for a single copper coin. He looks down like he just stepped in something gross, his eyes twitching with pure annoyance. The guy doesn't even hesitate, using magic to blast the poor kid backward. He brushes his clothes off, acting like the NPC is just filth that stained his suit. Commander Tak catches the girl just in time, his eyes burning with rage at the Giga Empire squad. He steps forward, demanding to know how they dare lay a hand on one of his citizens. Park isn't intimidated at all, just calling the commander scum right to his face. Tak doesn't want to talk anymore. He winds up a punch to knock the guy's teeth out. Before the hit lands, a set of red magic chains whip out and bind the commander's arms. He struggles against the bindings, cursing out the tiny wizard holding him back. Light steps up, calmly asking if Tak is really stupid enough to attack a diplomatic group. He stares him down, putting on the pressure and asking if he's ready to face the consequences. Tak just spits back that he was only dealing with a jerk who hit a kid. A voice calls out from the top of the stairs, finally welcoming everyone to Yopi Land. The newcomer notes that the girl is fine and the commander isn't hurt, so everyone needs to chill out. King Yopi finally makes his entrance, looking remarkably casual for a ruler. He stands on the balcony with Lime and his companions, watching the whole mess unfold. His eyes flash as he lets them know that if he were serious, they wouldn't be standing there much longer. The Giga Empire group is left speechless, completely overwhelmed by the king's presence. Yopi decides he's done with the small talk and invites everyone to just come inside. The party heads to Heart Heater's pawn shop to celebrate their successful dungeon run. Heart Heater presents them with a massive celebration cake to mark Dark's official job advancement. Dark isn't exactly thrilled by the look of the cake, especially with Sora and the others ready to dive in. Despite its weird appearance, the cake is filled with layers of delicious pink cream. While everyone's stuffing their faces, Dark wonders what his next move should be now that he's leveled up. Heart Heater suggests he head to a village and invest in some decent equipment for his new class. Suddenly, the summoner's ring on Dark's finger starts to glow and vibrate. Dark is surprised to see his servant spirit reacting to something. In the background, jars filled with mysterious glowing green liquids sit on the shelf. Sora and the others stop eating, their eyes widening as they feel a sudden shift in the room. A pale blue figure with long, dark hair suddenly manifests from the ring. The spirit emerges completely naked, catching everyone totally off guard. The entity introduces herself as Lazy, the servant spirit bound to Dark. She explains that her defeat in the dungeon forced her into subordination, but she doesn't regret the fight. Currently, she's in a childlike form because she grows stronger as Dark's own power increases. Dark panics and tries to wrap her in a cloak, telling her they need to get some actual clothes first. The scene shifts to the conference room in Yopi Castle, where a high-stakes meeting is underway. A chair sits empty at the long table, highlighting the absence of some key members. King Yopi sits at the head of the table, ready to get down to the main topic. Manager Park from Giga complains about his scouting unit getting beaten up, but supporter Lime just calls it self-defense. The Giga representatives are visibly annoyed, clearly not here to listen to an NPC's excuses. Vice President Light steps in to apologize for his associate's rude behavior, trying to smooth things over. King Yopi's expression darkens, warning them to never insult his citizens as damn NPCs again. The king's aura becomes incredibly heavy as he threatens to silence anyone who disrespects his people. Light quickly changes the subject, reminding everyone they have much more important issues to discuss. The vice president suggests they put the mining rights dispute aside for a moment. He explains that as the player count increased, a dark force known as Nightmare began growing stronger. The world was on the brink of being taken over, but fortunately, the Nightmare has recently entered an idle period. Light notes that while the Giga Empire's castles have mostly recovered from the damage, others aren't so lucky. A holographic map shows that several lands and villages, including Yopi Land, are still in the middle of recovery. Light points out that this makes it the perfect time for anyone looking to launch an attack on Yopi Land. King Yopi slams his hand on the table, his patience finally wearing thin with the Empire's posturing. Commander Tak loses his cool and launches himself across the table, shouting at Light to shut his mouth. The commander is immediately restrained by red magic chains again, much to his frustration. Yopi sits back and calms the room, stating there won't be any war today. He agrees to deal with Giga on one condition: they have to step away from Dark. Light stands up to leave, his boots clicking on the stone floor as he walks away. He tells the king to think his offer through carefully as the Giga delegation exits the hall. The Empire's representatives march out in a single-file line, their white capes flowing behind them. As they leave, the focus shifts back to the streets of the city. The leveling warrior drops a bombshell on the group, admitting that he's actually broke. Dark is furious, realizing Ethan spent all the quest money on a goblin's pendant during the dungeon fight. A heavy footstep echoes as a voice calls out a name that shouldn't exist in the game: Carter Hahn. Dark's eyes go wide with terror as he hears someone using his real-world name. A high-ranking officer of the Giga Empire descends the stone steps with an air of absolute authority. Staring in disbelief, Dark can only manage to stammer out a single word: "Brother?" The man is Lucas, Dark's older brother, and he looks down at the boy with nothing but cold indifference. Lucas immediately shuts him down, ice in his voice as he tells Dark never to call him brother. He demands to know if Dark has forgotten their father's orders, reminding him that he's supposed to be banned from the game. Lucas walks away without a second glance, leaving a parting insult for his sibling to live as a loser. The words hang in the air like a curse, linking Dark's failure to the reputation of his father. One of the Giga assassins offers to eliminate the boy, but the vice president dismisses the idea, deeming Dark not worth the trouble. Sora is fuming, demanding to know who that arrogant man was and if he really belongs to the Giga group's top brass. While the others are distracted, Ethan watches the departing group, noting how they seem to be flanking the man in the center. Ethan realizes that despite the tough talk, it was Lucas who was being shielded by the high-level bodyguards. Dark remains rooted to the spot, completely spaced out and crushed by the encounter. A sudden tap on the shoulder breaks the trance as Ethan tries to get the kid's attention. He uses a playful insult, calling him a middle schooler to snap him out of his dark mood. Ethan flashes a wide, toothy grin and tells Dark there's no reason to worry as long as they're together. Dark is far from impressed, flatly reminding his boastful companion that he's currently only a level 15 player. Brushing off the critique, Ethan insists that his true greatness will be revealed to them very soon. Sora is back to her usual energetic self, asking if he can really beat everyone with a single punch, while Dark remains skeptical. The scene ends with a lingering shot of a confident smirk as the virtual world begins to fade. A bright, cheerful melody starts to play over a clear blue backdrop, signaling a transition to the morning. The view pulls back to reveal a sprawling urban landscape filled with towering gray apartment blocks. The morning sun glints off the glass balconies as the upbeat music continues to echo through the city. Inside a small, messy apartment, a cell phone alarm blares "Good morning" as a figure lies buried under a blanket. A young woman finally stirs, groaning as she prepares to face another day in the real world. The camera pans across the skyline to a sleek, dark skyscraper that towers over everything else. This is Miso Tower No. 1, the massive corporate headquarters for Miso Logistics. While the upper floors are filled with corporate glamour, the building hides a much darker secret in its depths. Deep underground on level B13F lies a hidden labor camp for those who have fallen into debt. At the very end of the lightless corridor is the cramped cell-like room assigned to the hardcore leveling warrior. Ethan Gong lies on his back on the cold floor, staring up at the ceiling while music plays through his headphones. He rubs his face in exhaustion, clearly hating every second of his current reality. Sitting up, he grumbles about the "good morning" alarm, feeling like he's stuck in a literal gutter. He stretches his arms and wonders what kind of pathetic meal is on the menu for today. His supplies are incredibly basic: a few bottles of water, some cheap crackers, and a stack of canned tuna. Frustration boils over as he kicks his meager rations across the floor, cursing the conditions he's forced to live in. A single can of vegetable tuna rolls away into the corner as Ethan stands there, fuming and hungry. His anger is quickly replaced by the loud, persistent rumbling of his empty stomach. Giving in to necessity, he sits on the floor and starts eating the tuna straight from the can. He finishes the meal with a loud, unceremonious burp, the highlight of his morning routine. Meanwhile, on a crowded city bus, a girl with long hair stands among the sea of commuters heading to work. Stifling a yawn, the young woman realizes with a start that she's overslept and is now stuck on a packed morning bus. Despite the rough start to her day, she finds comfort in the fact that she finally managed to join a party in Lucid Adventure. She observes the crowd around her, noticing that almost every passenger is completely engrossed in their smartphone. A quick glance at the screens reveals the truth. Every single person is scouring the web for news about the virtual world. The bus announcement calls out the Miso Tower intersection, and Sora prepares to push through the crowd to get off. On the sidewalk, she overhears a couple of young men gossiping about the legendary hardcore leveling warrior's recent loss. One of the guys laughs, telling his friend that he's hopelessly behind the times if he's only just hearing about the defeat. The city skyline serves as a backdrop for the reality of Lucid Adventure, a game so immersive it can be played while asleep. Everywhere she looks, neon signs promote guild exams, item trades, and loans specifically for players. Sora heads into a convenience store named Hohoi25, where the shopkeeper notes that she's arrived exactly on time. Trading her hoodie for a yellow work apron, she takes a deep breath and readies herself for the daily grind. As she stocks the dairy case, she notes that top-ranked players have become such icons that they even appear on milk cartons. The line between the game and reality has blurred so much that people now trade real-world favors for in-game leveling. Hours pass in a blur of repetitive tasks until the sun begins its slow descent over the city streets. Waiting for her ride home, Sora vents her frustrations under her breath, tired of the rude customers she dealt with all day. She stands at the bus stop, her expression weary as the golden light of the sunset washes over the queue of commuters. Looking at the exhausted faces of those around her, she realizes they all share the same hollow, overworked gaze. She can't help but wonder how many of these tired people look like completely different heroes once they enter the game. Meanwhile, in a quiet, high-end apartment, a plastic bag filled with convenience store snacks is placed on a table. A blonde woman in a blue jacket delivers the modest meal to a young man who is sitting silently on the couch. She looks at him with a soft, curious smile, asking the young master if he has ever actually eaten this kind of food before. The young man, the real-world Carter Hahn, stares back with an intense, unreadable expression and a simple no. He watches as she begins to unpack the food, his mind turning toward his grandfather and his status in the game world. The woman shows him how to open the triangular kimbap, asking if he is referring to his grandfather in this world or the other. Dark's back in the real world, just staring at a snack. He takes a bite, keeping it casual. He's talking with a girl in a fancy room about how Giga's units couldn't track Ethan down. He looks pretty serious for someone just holding a milk carton. Dark admits he still sees those ghostly figures hanging around the room. He drops the milk in frustration. To him, this life just feels like one big curse. A message pops up on his phone. Heart Heater wants him to log back into the game. We're back in Lucid Adventure, looking at a massive, sun-drenched city. Dark meets up with Sora and hardcore leveling warrior on the street. They head over to see Heart Heater at his shop. The merchant leads them inside to talk business. He's got the gear Dark ordered laid out on the table. Sora and Hardcore Leveling Warrior check out the new equipment, but Heart Heater has something even more interesting hidden away. He pulls out a Grade S secret quest in a sealed envelope. Ethan's eyes go wide. That's a serious high-level quest. The merchant shows them the special seal on the back of the letter. It's got the sign of the president, which really catches Dark off guard. Rim pours some tea for the boss while they settle in. Heart Heater kicks his feet up and starts reading, acting like it's just another day. He wonders if the group is actually going to survive that secret quest. Cut to the 12th floor of the dungeon, where massive stone pillars tower over the landscape. Hardcore Leveling Warrior leaps right into the action. The whole party is deep inside the ruins, ready for a fight. Ethan coordinates an attack with his blue-skinned companion. That's when a menacing figure steps out of the fog. It's a red player, a PKer who's looking to slice through some weaklings. He draws a glowing green sword, clearly ready for a fight. He moves like a blur, swinging the blade with deadly speed. The guy is enjoying the hunt, closing in for a strike. Ethan is caught off guard by the sheer intensity of the attack. The PKer bares his teeth and tells them it's time to die. He lets out a bamboo strike that ripples through the air. He follows it up immediately with a spear technique. Ethan barely manages to get his sword up to block. The impact creates a massive shockwave across the hall. He's struggling to hold the green blade back, while the PKer gets annoyed by that little blue kid. The pressure is so high, it's literally shattering the ground. The blue-skinned girl maneuvers into position. She manages to pin the green sword down, completely immobilizing it. She traps the PKer in a bubble of liquid energy. With the enemy stuck, Ethan prepares to deliver a counterblow. The PKer just smirks, mocking them for thinking he was some kind of weakling. Then, his weapon suddenly starts to shrink. He uses the trick to dodge an attack from Lazy, proving he's got some serious combat skills. Ethan realizes the guy has a personal attribute that lets him resize his blade at will. A massive shockwave rings out as they clash again. Ethan's cracked sword groans under the pressure of the glowing green blade. The guy gets right in his face, telling him it's game over. It looks like the PKer is about to land a finishing blow. Suddenly, a handful of coins fly into the air. Things get a little cartoony for a second as the team counts their progress. They've successfully made it to the 5th floor of the towers. Both Dark and Ethan hit level 30, while Sora just finds a fluffy sheep monster to play with. Dark goes over the mission again. Clear the 20th floor and capture that red player. Ethan pulls up his menu, telling them to focus on getting their level up stats first. He takes a serious look at his current skill list. At level 30, the restriction on his lucky coin skill is finally lifted. He holds up a gold coin, and Dark asks what a personal attribute even is. Ethan is clearly annoyed that their broker didn't explain the basics to them. He breaks it down. It's a random trait given at character creation that doesn't care about your class. Dark just looks completely confused by the whole thing. It's why you might see a magician using a bow or a healer who's also a martial arts master. Ethan's starting to feel like a walking encyclopedia for these two noobs. When Dark asks about his own attribute, Ethan tells him to shut up because he wouldn't understand. Looking at the quest details, he feels like the rewards are way too generous for the task. He looks closely at the seal on the letter, thinking back to Yopi Land. Dark turns to Sora and asks what her personal attribute is. She has no idea, which shocks Dark since she's actually a higher level than him. Ethan just face palms, frustrated by how much of a couple of noobs they are. He explains there's an item that can check for them, but clearing the dungeon comes first. In the shadows, they spot creatures that look exactly like the ones they saw at Yopi Land. But he's confident that if they can get that item, they've got nothing to fear. The group continues their climb, heading up a massive stone staircase. Ethan stays on high alert as they reach the next floor. Suddenly, a massive roar shakes the entire room. A level 40 deer man steps out, the guardian of the 6th floor. Dark is practically shaking at the sight of that massive axe. Ethan doesn't hesitate, calling out his lucky coin skill for a gamble. He's hoping for heads to get a buff, since tails would mean absolutely nothing happens. He catches the coins out of the air with a smirk. The coin glows gold in his palm. It looks like luck is on his side. With a cocky grin, he gets ready to take the giant down. He makes his move, feeling like the luckiest guy in the world. The massive deer man lets out a low, warning growl, telling the group to turn back now. Ethan isn't listening though. He just mumbles a quick apology before lunging forward with his sword. There's a sharp shrip as his blade slices through the air. With one explosive strike, Ethan delivers a blow that completely overwhelms the level 40 Guardian. The sheer force of the impact sends the massive beast tumbling through the air. It hits the ground with a sickening thump, dead before it even finishes bouncing. Ethan strikes a cocky victory pose, grinning as he asks his teammates if they caught that performance. A green loot drop falls to the floor with a quiet thud right next to his boot. But before he can even reach for it, a glowing net trap suddenly shoots up from the ground. In an instant, Ethan is hoisted into the air, while Dark and Sora can only watch in total shock. Before they can react, they're both caught in their own traps, landing on the stone floor with a thud. Dark screams as he's yanked toward the ceiling, the magic net tightening around him instantly. "Got you! What a perfect trap!" A mysterious voice giggles from somewhere above them. Now the whole crew is dangling from the ceiling like oversized ornaments, with Ethan fuming as he demands to be let out. He's in a total rage, screaming at his captors and asking if they even have a clue who he is. "Of course I do," the voice replies coolly. "You're the hardcore leveling warrior." 3 players step into the light. Thief Keenz, a tiny mage, and a giant teddy bear. Keenz demands everything they've got. Sora grunts as she tries to tear through her net, but it's way tougher than it looks. Dark is actually trying to chew his way out, while Ethan keeps threatening the trio with a quick and painful death. Dark looks like he's about to give up, his face pressed miserably against the glowing ropes. The trio looks down at their catch, wondering if these are the red players mentioned in their secret quest. The little mage looks confused, asking Keenz what the captives are even talking about. Keenz just gives a wicked grin, assuming their infamous reputation has already spread far and wide. He proudly confirms that they are indeed the infamous red player party, or at least that's the lie he's telling. Ethan tries to play it cool, telling them they're just a bunch of low-level noobs with nothing worth taking. But Keenz isn't buying it. He saw Ethan using a very special dagger back at Yopiland. He starts bragging about how an item like that would practically guarantee him a win in the combat tournament. From his position hanging upside down, Ethan can only sigh in annoyance at the guy's massive ego. Keenz walks right up to the net, mockingly calling the former #1 player a total noob. He activates his search skill, slamming his gloved hand against Ethan to scan his inventory. The force of the skill sends Ethan spinning wildly in his net as he curses under his breath. A digital inventory window pops up, showing that Keenz has successfully found the paralyzing dagger. Keenz doesn't waste a second, immediately activating his steal skill to snatch the prize for himself. A blue flash of energy erupts as the skill takes hold, pulling an item directly from Ethan's bag. But instead of the legendary dagger, Keenz ends up holding a useless, common deer antler. He looks at the item in total frustration, realizing he can't pull off a perfect steal on the first try. Ethan can't help but mock the guy's failure, which only makes Keenz snap that he's the quick hand of Yopiland. Ethan's expression suddenly shifts, a dark and knowing grin spreading across his face as he hears where they're from. With a sudden blur of motion and a loud psst, Ethan manages to slip right out of the magic trap. Keenz is left gaping in horror, wondering how on earth this noob knew the deactivation code for the secret store trap. Before he can even react, Ethan delivers a powerful roundhouse kick that sends Keenz flying across the room. The thief lands hard on his backside, while his teammates can only watch their leader get humiliated. With a series of sharp snaps, the magic nets suddenly disintegrate, releasing the group from their mid-air prison. Ethan strikes a confident pose, mockingly asking the thieves if they still don't understand how he knew their secret deactivation code. Thief Keenz is left fuming as Ethan reminds him that a former rank #1 wouldn't be caught by a low-level shop trap. Ethan holds out his hand with a smug look, taunting the rival party for trying to steal his legendary paralyzing dagger. Looking across the chamber at the thieves, Ethan proposes a formal 3-on-3 combat to settle the score once and for all. Dark is in a total rage in the background, but Ethan ignores him, murmuring to himself about high-level combat tactics. Sora watches the exchange with a silent, determined expression, her pink eyes focused on the upcoming fight. Keen's group takes only a moment to confer before the elf leader shouts his enthusiastic agreement. Ethan steps forward with a sinister smirk, suggesting they shake hands to summon the combat NPC and finalize the duel. Secretly, Ethan is already celebrating. He plans to lure them into formal combat just so he can steal their valuable stats. "Bring it on," Ethan shouts as he and Keynes approach each other to start the official challenge. Their hands meet in a flash of brilliant light as the system registers the start of the 3-on-3 duel. Keynes gives a wicked, confident grin, feeling like he's already got the upper hand. "Now, Alpaca Man!" Keynes screams, calling out his party's muscle to lead the charge. Ethan's eyes widen in genuine surprise as a massive shadow looms over him. With a thunderous "What-a-da!" Alpaca Man, the giant teddy bear, lunges forward with unexpected speed. The giant bear easily overwhelms Ethan, hoisting him into the air by the head to prove his massive strength. Keynes doesn't waste a second, lunging forward with a blue energy swirl and a sharp psoot. He activates his steel skill once more, his hand glowing as he reaches for Ethan's inventory. Keynes triumphantly brandishes the paralyzing dagger, laughing like a maniac as he declares it his own. Sora's blade misses Keynes by a hair as he dodges her sneak attack, his eyes bulging in shock. A massive clang echoes through the hall as Sora's relentless assault forces the thieves onto the defensive. Away from the main fight, a timid girl in a giant yellow hat watches while her talking staff, Goldie, screams insults at everyone. The staff, Goldie, berates the magician girl for being a coward, while Oz quietly begs it to stop using such mean language. Dark is eager to show off his new skills, calling Ethan a noob warrior while activating his skilled decay. The zombie's head is obliterated instantly, leaving Dark looking down at the mess while Ethan stays focused on the path ahead. Back in the arena, Ethan is getting absolutely pummeled by Scallion Head, begging for mercy as the muscular warrior keeps the pressure on. A massive punch connects right with Ethan's face, the impact echoing through the stadium. The force of the blow sends him tumbling backward across the stone floor, completely overwhelmed. Sora, wearing a ridiculous bird-shaped hat, is having second thoughts about using her fire magic, worried it might be a bit too intense. She lets it rip anyway, and a massive pillar of light and fire erupts, consuming the entire area. Ethan is left smoking and dazed on the ground, wondering if his bones have actually been cooked through by the blast. He suddenly senses a shift in the air, realizing that a new, even greater danger is approaching. The sound of rhythmic tapping on the tiles signals someone's arrival through the dust. Sora apologizes to her enemies before unleashing a massive swap spell, her power flaring up. She conjures a massive, grinning fireball, the fire magic Boom Boom Ball, and sends it hurtling toward the target. The spell crashes down with a deafening roar, turning the arena into a white-hot inferno. Ethan stares into the blinding light, battered and sweating, wondering if this is finally the end of the line for him. But as the smoke clears, a mysterious red-haired woman in a revealing yellow outfit stands before him, her arms spread wide to shield him from the blast. The sight of her leaves everyone, Ethan, Dark, Scallionhead, and Sora, completely stunned.